Sing to me, muses, of a winter long ago. Sing of tinsel and holly and twinkling lights, of snow and ice and carolers and pretty packages wrapped and waiting beneath the deep green branches of glowing trees. Tell me of children who laugh and play, and people young and old whose hearts are light with the holiday spirit. Speak of candy canes and mistletoe, of families brought together, the thrill of secrets well kept, and the joy of happy surprises. Sing to me, O muses, of generous and perseverant Homer, and of his Christmas quest. It was a cold December morning. The snow glistened like a million shining diamonds, and an icy wind danced through the trees. Homer of the wondrous tales awoke from his slumber. Although he could not see the sparkling lights glowing outside his window, or the grandly decorated trees standing proudly in the center of his house, he could feel the happy anticipation crackling in the air. Christmas was coming. Homer loved Christmas. The sweet smells of cookies and hot chocolate riding the breeze like warriors on their stallions, the hustle and bustle of people running around like a great flock of unattended sheep, bumping good-naturedly into one another as they hurried about buying gifts and supplies. The noise of bands of carolers singing their holiday songs, howling like wolves to be heard above the crowds. But what Homer loved most by far was the sound of his 9 wonderful children bright and early Christmas morning, ripping into their gifts and squealing with delight. Homer had spent weeks picking out the perfect presents for his brilliant brood. For his son Zeus, he had chosen a big baseball bat. How Zeus would thrill at the thunderous crack of bat on ball the first time he hit a home run. For lovely Hera, Homer had purchased a baby doll. He knew she would care for it with the utmost motherly affection. A sleek toy boat was the perfect gift for water-loving Poseidon, and Homer knew Ares would never put his new sword down. For clever Athena, Homer had bought a chess set. For Apollo, he'd picked out a flashlight. The boy loved all things that shone, and would definitely enjoy using it to put on shows for his friends. Homer had found Hephaestus a lucky horseshoe, and had selected a beautiful necklace for gorgeous Aphrodite. And for little Hades, he'd bought a toy bat. Homer knew it was going to be a wonderful Christmas. Sighing contentedly, he settled into his favorite armchair to enjoy a mug of hot cocoa. He smiled as the rich chocolate scent wafted up into his nose and touched his face with its warm fingers. Just as Homer began to take his first delicious sip, the telephone rang. Startled, Homer got up and hurried over to answer it. "Hello? Homer?" came a voice. "Helen," Homer answered, recognizing it immediately as his sister's. "Happy holidays! May I ask what has inspired you to call? You usually wait until December 25th to share your Christmas wishes. Today's only the 23rd. "Homer," Helen replied, "I haven't called to wish you a Merry Christmas. I just wanted to know what time tomorrow I should drop off the boys." Homer froze. He had entirely forgotten that his nephews, Achilles and Odysseus, were spending Christmas with him this year. How about 6 o'clock? Just in time for dinner," Homer suggested, stuttering. "Perfect," Helen answered brightly. "See you then." And with that, she cheerily hung up the phone. "Oh no," Homer moaned in despair. "What on Olympus am I going to do? Tomorrow's Christmas Eve, and I haven't bought a thing for Odysseus or Achilles. They'll be terribly sad without any gifts to open Christmas morning." Homer thought of his young nephews. He imagined their distraught cries upon finding nothing waiting for them under the branches of the majestic Christmas tree. Homer simply couldn't bear it. In that moment, he knew what he had to do. Homer fastened his boots, pulled on his warm winter coat, and prepared to march on to a battlefield, the shopping center just before Christmas. Somewhat wary of the journey about to unfold, but determined nonetheless, Homer took a deep breath and threw open his front door. He was greeted immediately by a great rush of noise and a freezing wind that very nearly swept him off his feet. Homer stepped off his porch, steadied himself on the icy sidewalk, and set off on his quest. A man of method and planning, Homer thought his task would be best tackled by shopping for one nephew at a time. He decided to start with Achilles. Unfortunately, Achilles was a particularly difficult boy to shop for. His interests were all over the map. On the one hand, Achilles was a valiant warrior, skilled at swordplay and sports. On the other, he was a real homebody, a guy who enjoyed working in the family garden or curling up to watch a movie with friends. What, Homer puzzled, is something I could get him that he would enjoy? Perhaps he would have fun with a sword, like the one I got Ares, Homer finally figured. He hurried happily to the toy store, dodging honking cars and pedestrians laden with presents. After a rather harrowing trek, Homer finally made it, only to find to his horror that the shelves were bare. He would simply have to come up with another idea. Homer thought of a picture book, filled with beautiful images of pastoral scenes. Achilles would certainly love that. But all that remained at the bookshop were a few tattered volumes left out for shoppers to read and examine, nothing in fit shape to be a present. What about a movie? Achilles might like a war movie or a nature documentary. But alas, the video store, like most other places, had completely sold out of all of its goods. Feeling nearly defeated, but refusing to give up hope, Homer wandered up and down the snowy streets, desperately trying to think of anything his young nephew might like. That's when he heard it. Shields! Get your custom shields here! Beautiful craftsmanship! Fair prices! Bursting with delight, Homer followed his ears to the characters so enthusiastically advertising his wares. Homer knew Achilles would adore a shining shield. Homer told the shield crafter all about his nephew, and before long, he had a gift sure to put a smile on Achilles' face. The shield, Homer was informed, was made of shimmering bronze. He ran his hands over it, feeling the intricate carvings of beautiful stars and a warm rustic stable. A Christmas scene. Homer smiled. It was perfect. Excellent, Homer thought. That's one nephew covered. Now I just have to find a present for Odysseus. Odysseus was very bright and very close to his cousin Athena. I bet he would love a chess set like my gray-eyed girls, Homer speculated, pleased with his logic. But then he remembered that the toy store was practically empty. Well, what if I just get Odysseus a shield too, thought Homer. He reached into his purse to pull out a handful of coins and, much to his dismay, realized that he only had a few left, not nearly enough to pay for another shield. Homer tried to brainstorm more affordable presents. He thought of a toy bow with arrows, but again recalled the barren state of the toy store and dismissed the idea. He thought of a book of riddles and mind games. Odysseus would have a blast with one of those. Looking back on his trip to the bookshop, though, Homer doubted there would be any in stock. The only ones that might be around would be torn-up samples with the pages written on and half of the problems already figured out. Homer pondered and puzzled until his brain was sore. Finally, heaving a somber sigh, he sat down on a snowdrift and prayed to the heavens that he would think of something, anything, to give his little nephew. Homer sat for a while in utter despair. Then, suddenly, he heard footsteps crunching and shuffling their way through the snow. Someone was heading right for him. Just then, a voice spoke. "Excuse me, sir, but would you happen to have a bit of spare change for a snack?" The voice sounded old and a little bit weary, but had a warmth and gentleness Homer just couldn't ignore. Although he had only a few coins left in his pouch, Homer invited the man into the nearest cafe for some delicious hot cocoa and sweet Christmas cookies. Homer was pleased as the man crunched and sipped. He knew he had done a good deed. But now that he had no money left, what would he possibly get Odysseus? Homer sighed sadly. "What's wrong, my friend?" the old voice asked. "Oh, it's nothing you should worry yourself about," Homer replied. "I'm just trying to think of a Christmas present for my nephew Odysseus." "Why, that's the perfect thing for me to worry myself about," the voice boomed with greatly renewed spark. "Christmas presents just so happen to be my specialty." And with that, the man reached his hand into the pocket of his tattered red coat and pulled out a little tree. "Give this to Odysseus," the man insisted. "I know he'll really like it." "Okay," Homer said. He felt a sapling was a rather odd gift, but, out of other options, he thought it best to take what he could get. "Thank you," he told the old man. "It was my pleasure," the old man replied. "Thank you for your kindness, and have a very Merry Christmas." The two parted ways, and Homer returned home to wrap the shield in the tree and get a good rest before the exciting days ahead. The next evening at 6 o'clock sharp, Helen stopped by with Achilles and Odysseus, and the whole family sat down for a feast. After some happy holiday fun, Helen bid her kin farewell, and Homer and the children went off to bed. The next morning, bright and early, Homer awoke to the patter and clatter of 11 little boys and girls jumping around outside his door, eager to run and see what surprises awaited them. Homer led the kids to the glowing Christmas tree and unleashed them on the pile of treasures waiting patiently under its branches. As he opened his own gifts, he heard the children shrieking with delight at each special present. That is, until Odysseus discovered his sapling. The moment he unwrapped it, his brother Achilles, always quick to speak up, loudly called out, "You got a tree? What on Olympus are you going to do with that sickly little thing?" Homer's children looked over and burst out laughing right away. Although certainly not polite, Achilles wasn't entirely wrong about the sapling. It was looking a bit worse for wear after spending a few nights wrapped up. Homer was about to say something, perhaps offer Odysseus a better gift at a later date. But before he could get a word in, Odysseus piped up, "I love this tree. It'll be all right. It just needs some water." And the little boy got up to give his plant a drink. Everyone returned to opening presents in peace, but the peace did not last long. All of a sudden, Odysseus's voice rang out from the kitchen. "My tree! It's growing!" And growing it was, at an exponential rate. "Quick," Homer shouted, "take it outside before it goes through the ceiling." Odysseus sprinted outside with his sapling, hardly a sapling anymore. The rest of the family was close on his heels. Once they all had made it through the door, they were greeted by a magnificent sight. Odysseus's tree was at least 10 stories tall, strong and green. "Holy cow!" Achilles cried, craning his neck to try to find where tree ended and sky began. "Wait, where's Odysseus?" Homer burst out. "Up here," replied a voice from afar. Immediately 11 heads snapped skyward. Just then a cold breeze parted the big tree's branches to reveal a splendid treehouse. Odysseus sat happily inside. "Come on up," the boy called. "There's plenty of room for everyone." And so, Homer and his family spent a truly magical Christmas in what all could agree was the most spectacular present in history.